Ciao a tutti, vi parlo dalla concessionaria Fassina di Milano. Vi propongo tutta la gamma DR Evo in pronta consegna presso la nostra concessionaria. SUV di tutte le dimensioni, a prezzi accattivanti e dotazioni impareggiabili. Vi aspetto.
Buongiorno ragazzi da Motor Times. Se state cercando una moto usata, qui ce n'è per tutti i gusti e per tutte le tasche. Fate un salto a trovarmi a Saronno in via Varese al 120. Ciao!
Ragazzi, occasione imperdibile, l'ultima Africa Twin CRF 1100 ES, colorazione 2024, ma la moto è assolutamente tecnicamente identica alla 2025, ad un prezzo da capogiro, 14.490 euro franco concessionario. Non si può resistere e se volete il modello Adventure Sports con ruota da 19, 16.990, non perdetevele, ma solo da Motostar.
Ciao, sono Luigi, insieme a Davide e il mio collega vi aspetto a Bike House Orange in viale Belforte 2 a Varese, concessionari ufficiali KTM, Kawasaki, SIM, officina autorizzata, abbigliamento Power Part KTM, Kawasaki, vi aspettiamo numerosi.
Ciao dalla Pogliani, nuovo salone in allestimento quasi finito per voi. Veniteci a trovare in viale Fratelli Casiraghi a Sesto San Giovanni.
È arrivata da Svezia Car la nuova Volvo XC60 Model Year 26 con alcuni aggiornamenti estetici e più importanti aggiornamenti per quanto riguarda l'infotainment e l'abitacolo. È visibile e si può anche ovviamente provare qui presso Svezia Car in via GB Grassi 98 a Milano.
Motoway a Sago, da Luca e Alessandro troverete tanta professionalità e simpatia per le vostre moto Kawasaki e gli scooter Kimco. Motoway è anche rivenditore ufficiale Honda e un'officina veloce, affidabile e precisa. Per la tua moto e per il tuo scooter scegli Motoway.
Vi aspettiamo da Motoway.
Ragazzi, finalmente posso darvi una grande notizia. KTM ha iniziato la produzione, quindi a breve presso K Monza potrete vedere tutti i modelli che sono stati anticipati in fiera l'anno scorso. Quindi finalmente l'oblio è finito e le moto saranno qui in K Monza. Vi aspettiamo.
Babbo, c'è una promo, mi sa. Me l'hanno detto. Z900. Eccola. 9,440 più immatricolazione messa in strada. 800 euro di incentivo sul prezzo di listino, oppure per i più smaniosi kit performance, scarico a Karabovic, unghietta monoposto e cupolino sportivo. Vi aspettiamo ad Amodeo Moto per la promo Z900 e su tutto il resto della gamma. Ciao ragazzi!
Hello, my friends of Paddock TV. Thanks so much to Matt Oxley to spend some time with us before leaving for the Red Bull Ring for the MotoGP. Hi, Matt.
Hey, Bob. How are you?
I'm fine. We haven't talked so much in the last few years. I remember the nice MotoGP roundtables during the COVID lockdown. You remember that with Manuel Pessino and Michel? It was... Okay.
It was nice.
So
I try not to remember that time if possible.
Yeah.
Forget about it.
Actually, this
never happened.
This is much better. Yeah, never happened. We just cancel it. And for the few MotoGP lovers that don't know Matt Oxley, I have to say he's a superb author, a fantastic writer, marvelous journalist. And plus, and this is the place I would like to start from, Matt Oxley is a racer. He's a former racer. He's a TT, a Tourist Trophy winner. And so that makes such a big difference, Matt Oxley, from all the rest of your colleagues. I mean, it's such an important thing. And I would like to start from there because you have a win at the Tourist Trophy, as I said. You have a second place at the 24 Le Mans, 24 hours Le Mans. How did you decide to switch from racing to writers and journalism?
I kind of did them at the same time, Bob, really. I started racing when I was 20 and I got my first job as a motorbike journalist when I was 21. So, you know, I finished racing in 1991. So, yeah, so for 11 years or so, I was doing both. And I basically raced in my holidays from Motorcycle News or whatever, that kind of stuff. And yeah, I suppose doing racing, and you do understand, if you've raced to a reasonable level, you probably do understand it better than a lot of people, because the feelings you get on the bike, the feelings for the front tire, the feelings from the rear tire, you know, and also smashing yourself up, you know. I mean, a lot of motorcyclists smash themselves up, but you know, if you've been in hospital in a lot of pain, all that kind of stuff, you sort of understand the psychology, which is possibly the most important thing in racing, is the psychology of going to the grid every time knowing that you can leave the circuit in an ambulance, you know, is quite a big thing to deal with. Which really, I don't think there's any other really big sport where it's like that. I mean, maybe heavyweight boxing or something, you know what I mean, where you go into the ring and you come out in a real bad mess, you know. But this can happen in motorbike racing all the time. So, and I think some fans don't understand that you know, these guys are treading a really, I mean, we have a phrase in English, you know, if you're being tough before a race, you say podium or hospital, you know. I think in Italy you say champagne or gravel, but you know, it's the same thing. We say podium or hospital, you know, one or the other. I don't care.
Yeah, for sure. These disciplines where your health is so much at risk, I think, give you a different way of understanding this discipline itself. I mean, being a road racer, I like, because I've been commentating Tourist Trophy in Northwest since the beginning of 2000 in Italy, and these races were not famous here, no? And of course I just commentated them, but I understood the difference that between a road racer and maybe a normal racer, I mean, in circuit racer. Do you think this gave you the opportunity of relating to the riders? I mean, the riders that know you so well, and they know you had the balls to go in the Tourist Trophy. I mean, do you think it's different from that for them to relate with you?
No, I don't. I really don't actually. I don't think really, because I realized very quickly, being a journalist and a racer, that the top racers do not want to know about what you've done. You know,
they don't care.
They don't care, and which is fine, absolutely fine. But yeah, that's just the way it is. They don't care. They kind of, you know, if you've won a MotoGP championship, maybe they would be aware of it. But, and also I realized very early on that you don't talk to them about it. You don't mention it. You don't say, oh, I used to race, because they'll look at you like you're an idiot. You know what I mean? You just keep it quiet. And if maybe one of them mentions something, you say, yeah, okay. But generally, don't say anything.
Okay. Do you think there is a difference between a road racer and a normal racer?
Oh yes, between the TT. I mean, I did short circuits as well. I did Suzuka 8 Hours, Le Mans.
No, I don't know that, but I mean the reality of a road racing is something that we don't know so much.
No,
here,
definitely,
you know.
Definitely. I mean, the thing is, in the Isle of Man TT and other road races, you know that if you crash, there's a reasonably good chance that you're going to die. You know. Especially at the TT, because it's so fast, and the Northwest and Macau and all these places. You know, you make one mistake and you're in a brick wall at 200 kilometers an hour. You know, so you're not going to come out of that, right? It's a one way. It's a one mistake. You know, your first mistake at the TT can be your last. You know, so that's very. I mean, when riders go to the TT, they expect to be riding on the world's most dangerous circuit. They know that. They know what they're doing. When they go to MotoGP or another high-level championship, they expect the safest circuit. That's the difference, you know. So there's a very different mindset, and obviously, you know, in MotoGP, it's quite normal for people to crash 20 times in 1 year, and maybe not even break one bone. But you know, when you race at the TT, you cannot crash. I mean, I did once actually, and I was lucky not to hit a wall, but basically, you must not crash.
That's yes.
That's the main feature. Okay, is there a bike you're more attached from the ones you used to race? Because I saw many photographs of you riding Yamaha, and in those years, I remember how much I loved the RD or the other one, the 250. Maybe you won the tourist trophy with. But is there a bike you have in your heart more than the others?
The Honda RC30. I never raced one of them around the TT, but I raced an RC30 in endurance racing in my last 2 seasons in 89 and 80. But I also love the picture you're showing there, the TZR 250, which was just a beautiful motorcycle. I mean, it's just so good. It was so much fun around the Isle of Man, you know, so much fun.
Yeah, I can imagine.
But I also loved the Honda RC30, you know.
Okay, let's switch to your author activity, your the books and whatever. You have you narrated the life of fantastic riders. I have to ask you, which is the one that you loved more, and why? Do you think that the riders you have written about have something different to the others? I mean, there is a difference between them and the others, with all the respect to the others, of course, Matt.
Sure. So I've written 3 biographies. I've written the book you're showing there. Actually, that's not my Rossi book. My Rossi book was a different one, but it doesn't matter. So that's his autobiography. So mine one was different, but it doesn't matter. So I wrote in 99, I wrote a book about Mick Doohan. I wrote his biography. In 2001, I wrote Valentino Rossi's biography, and I've written several other books like all his races book there, which we did at the end of his career, like literally every single one of his races. That took a long time. And that's Age of Superheroes. That's a book I did about Gardner, Lawson, Schwantz, Doohan, and Rainey. You know, a very special era. So yeah, I mean, obviously, you know, if you're a journalist or a broadcaster, you're looking for a story. That's what you want. You want a good story. And so I've only really written what I think. If you're a journalist or a broadcaster, your life is a lot easier if you write about a good story, because it's basically the story comes to you. The story comes to you. You don't have to think, oh my God, what am I going to write about? Because there's already, you know, Valentino Rossi. Wow. I mean, even though I wrote the first biography in 2001, there was already so many fantastic stories and everything. The Doohan book, I mean, that's the biography. That's obviously the story of his 5 consecutive championships, but also his recovery from that horrendous injury he had in 1992, where they nearly amputated his right leg. So, you know, there's always a story that, and obviously with Rossi, the story is Valentino Rossi. You know, there will never be, you know, the thing about Rossi, that he was bigger than the sport that he came from, right? He was actually bigger than MotoGP. And I'm not sure.
And
but
is it a good thing or a bad thing, Matt? Is it a good thing or is it?
No, I think that's fantastic.
It's fantastic.
It's going to happen. Yeah, it's going to happen very, very, very rarely. I would say I'm not sure, but I would say there's only one sports person that's been bigger than other sports person that's been bigger than their sport, and I would say that's Muhammad Ali with boxing. You know, everybody in the world would have known who Muhammad Ali is, even if they knew nothing about boxing. You know, so.
Yeah.
And I think even if you look at someone like Maradona, Diego Maradona in football, you know, he was huge, but I don't think he wasn't bigger than football. You know, I mean, football is too big for anyone to be bigger than football. But so I would say Rossi was bigger, and it was a wonderful time, you know, because he brought with him a very special vibe, a sort of beauty and lightness and fun, and that's why everyone loved him, because he, you know, whether they were kids or grandparents, they you know, or a motorbiking guy or girl, you know, he just brought joy, you know, and ultimately that's what sport's about, you know, is bringing joy and excitement to people's ordinary lives, you know. That's what it's there for, to my mind.
Yeah. Coming to present time, even if Valentino still belongs to this world of MotoGP racing, and so does Doohan, you are writing the biography of Marc, and that's why I would like to go back to what I asked you before. I mean, do you notice something different between these riders and all the rest?
Yeah, I mean, you know, they aren't the only three, but I mean, there's probably half a dozen riders, maybe more, who are above. You know, MotoGP has all its legends now, but you know, I would say at least half of those aren't legends, really. You know, I'd say Duan's a legend. I'd say Rossi's a legend. I'd say Marquez is a legend. I'd say Kenny Roberts is a legend. Wayne Rainey is a legend. Giacomo Agostini's a legend. John Surtees is a legend. You know, I mean, and I would say there, I mean, I think to be a legend, you need to have won at least 3 MotoGP titles, you know? And there's not many people, that's probably all the people that have done that, you know? To be of a different level. And it depends on the era. What are their talents and what are their greatnesses, you know? I mean, I've interviewed so many legends, you know, from John Surtees, Agostini, all the way up to Rainey, Duan, Rossi, Marquez. And out of all those, I would put Rossi and Marquez
above.
Tricky, but maybe above. Certainly in their intellect, their intelligence. And again, I think a lot of fans don't realize how important that is in racing, that astonishing intellect to be able to think beyond everybody else, even when you're doing 300 kilometers an hour in a group of 5-6 riders, when half of the riders are thinking, oh, I want to overtake him there, I want to overtake, I must, you know, the real clever guys, which I would say is Rossi and Marquez, are thinking, okay, so we're on lap 14 of 30, so, you know, so they're doing all the overtaking and being overtaken, but at the same time, they're thinking, okay, so when we get to lap 24, I'm going to start upping the pace. I'm going to sit here and manage my tires, and then what I want to do is be in this position on that lap and that position on that lap, and then, you know what I mean? They've got it.
Yeah, of course.
And they're doing this while they're doing 300 Ks with 5 other riders around them. I mean, it's not normal. It's not normal, you know, to be able to have a brain that works, is able to see the wider picture, you know.
Ciao, sono Fabio Allegri, vi parlo dal MG Fassina presso il Car Village di Via Grassi 98 Milano. Vi aspettiamo numerosi per visionare la nostra gamma di vetture, benzina, full electric, programmare test drive, trovare una soluzione per le vostre esigenze di motorizzazione. Venite a trovarci presso MG Fassina, Via Grassi 98 Milano.
Buongiorno ragazzi da Motor Times. Se state cercando una moto usata, qui ce n'è per tutti i gusti e per tutte le tasche. Fate un salto a trovarmi a Saronno in via Varese al 120. Ciao!
Volvo XC40 B3 Essential a 32.800 euro, un'eccellente opportunità per entrare nel mondo Volvo. Questa e tantissime altre opportunità nuove o chilometri zero qui da Svezia Car Fassina in via GB Grassi 98 a Milano. Vi aspettiamo.
Giugno 2025, Motostar festeggia i suoi 50 anni di attività. Dal 1975, concessionaria Honda, Motostar per l'occasione vi offre un incredibile finanziamento, interessi zero sull'intera gamma usato. Avete capito bene? Solamente 150 euro di spese di apertura pratica e zero interessi su tutto l'usato. Non perdetevela!
Ciao, sono Riccardo Messa e vi aspetto in concessionaria perché questo è veramente un luglio caldissimo. È arrivata la novità dell'anno, R4, abbiamo anche il Restyle di Austral, bellissimo con le sue versioni, e anche Spas. Non vi resta che venire in concessionaria per scoprire le vetture, provarle e definire la vostra vettura preferita. Ciao!
Ciao ragazzi, Andrea, Amodio Moto di Saronno. Vi aspettiamo ufficialmente per i test ride delle 2 crossover principali di QJ Motor, SRT 700 e SRT 600 SX. Vi aspetto per scoprirle, provarle e viverle insieme. Ciao!
Ducati Milano ti aspetta con offerte irripetibili in pronta consegna. La grinta della famiglia Monster, l'adrenalina pura di Ipermotard sono già pronte per scendere in strada con te. Passa da Ducati Milano, vivi l'emozione, cavalca la leggenda. Solo da noi e solo per poco, Ipermotard e Monster ti aspettano.
Ciao a tutti, Marino del Carburatori Bergamo. Da sempre siamo il riferimento per qualsiasi tipo di esigenza che avete, dall'ottimizzazione a centralina, diagnostica avanzata e ovviamente carburatori. Ciao a tutti, vi aspettiamo.
Ciao ragazzi, sono Alessandro Bernasconi, siamo in Bike House Como a Grandate, vi aspetto, siamo una concessionaria ufficiale per la provincia di Como, per BMW. Da noi potrete trovare le moto nuove, le moto usate, le moto dimostrative da poter provare, abbigliamento e tutti i servizi dell'officina. Vi aspetto qui a Grandate in Bike House Como.
You know, Matt, when you talk about intelligence, I had chills because how many riders, both in MotoGP and Formula One and in motorsport racing, we have seen very fast guys, but with the luck. And it's not to say something bad towards them. I mean, this intelligence makes the difference. And so I so appreciate that you told us about that. I noticed you didn't mention Casey Stoner when you spoke about.
That's
is it because he didn't win?
Point. Well, I mean, so I've decided right now.
Okay.
I've only just now decided.
Okay.
I'm going to say you've got to have won 3 or more MotoGP World Championships. You know, and Stoner.
Okay, yeah, I heard that.
Stoner was an absolute genius. I think he was pretty much as good a rider as Marquez and Rossi. Well, no, he was, but you know, you need to have the longevity as well. And Casey, he won 2 titles, and I'm not knocking him in any way. You know, I thought what he did was fantastic. I've had enough. I've got enough money. I'm out of here. I'm going home to Australia. But, you know, you look at certainly what Doohan did to nearly have his leg amputated and still come back. And Ross and Marquez to be injured for 3-4 years, having already won 6 MotoGP titles and probably having 100 million euros in the bank, he still decides to come back. I mean, kind of unfortunately in motorbike racing, that is part of the kind of gauge of greatness in my mind, because you will get hurt in motorbike racing. It's not a case of if. You are going to get hurt.
Just
You're going to get smashed. You're going to get smashed up. Rossi was very lucky that, you know, he had quite a few injuries. He broke his leg, you know, but he never got badly smashed up like Doohan and Marquez did. But to me, yeah, I think you've got to be able, and like I say, sadly, I think that is a factor of motorbike racing, because there's no motorbike racer that hasn't come back from quite a what normal people would say is a serious injury. Like we say, oh, a broken leg, you know, no big deal. But to most normal people, that's a big deal. But you look at what Rossi and Doohan and Marquez have come back from long injuries. Wow, just incredible, you know.
How much of your book, I don't know when your book, the biography of Marc, will be in the bookstores. I don't know when will be available, Matt.
So the plan is to publish it as soon as he wins the championship, and if he doesn't, then to publish it after Valencia. So, and it's only available. I mean, if quick plug for my book, if people want to buy it, just Google my name, Matt Oxley, Marc Marquez biography, and my website will come up. And you can buy it off my website.
Okay.
So yeah, I've been working on it for nearly a year, and I've pretty much finished it except for the 2025 chapter. Obviously, I can't finish that till the championship is done. But so I've been interviewing so many people, going right back to his first team manager when he was 8. I mean, imagine that you've got a team manager when you're 8 years old, you know. Or a manager and a team manager. So talking with them and lots of engineers that worked with him, so tire technicians, suspension technicians, crew chiefs, team managers, technical directors, rivals, i.e. all the people that have known him. And what I discovered researching the book was something that really struck me. I mean, I thought I knew him quite well, having worked with him since he arrived in 125's Moto 2, I guess. But I realized very quickly that I actually don't know him very well, because with Rossi was all about the stories, right? Everyone knew Rossi's stories because he was very open and very communicative. So he always had funny stories to tell about when he was kids and riding scooters and getting chased by the police. And, you know, he had so many stories, and they're all fantastic stories.
Yeah,
Marc never talks about himself. Marc has never talked about stories of this, that, or the other. So I was finding out all these things from his technicians, his team managers, his engineers that I didn't know before. So it's been really interesting researching the book and writing it. Really interesting.
Matt, in Italy, as you very well know, there's a part of the audience that Marc Marquez for what happened in 2015. I don't want to spend my time regarding that here, that like as we said of the COVID and lockdown, we forget and we cancel it. But for somebody, it's impossible to cancel it. I have spoken, as you did, of course, during my years with MotoGP, with people that work elbow to elbow with Marc, and they all are deeply in love with them. So they would throw themselves from from a mountain to the valley below, or in the fire if they were requested to, for defending Marc. Did you find the same situation? Did you fall in love, of course, professionally with Marc? And what kind of person can you tell to these Italian people that can't stand Marc? Is
well, I would say, I mean, I wouldn't say I love Marc or Valentino, but I appreciate them
professionally,
and like
course.
them,
yeah,
and like them in a very similar way, because I've always liked what I would call warrior riders, right? I like riders that like to fight, you know, and Valentino loved to fight, and Marc loves to fight, and to me. And many people I've spoken to, other riders, engineers, they all say that, you know, it was inevitable that Rossi and Marquez were going to collide head on, absolutely head on collision, because they are identical. They are identical. You know, in the way when I interview them, that they're the best people I've ever interviewed, even though they're talking a second language. They just answer every question precisely. They almost have the answer to your question before you've asked the question. They see they're like I say, both of them, it's like they've got a seventh gear in their brain. Everybody else has got 6 gears, and they've got a 7th gear, so they can go a bit further. So they're very similar to interview. They're very engaged. Like some riders, when you interview them, they'd rather be somewhere else, you know. They're playing with their mobile phone or whatever. But Valentino and Marc, fully engaged, looking you in the eye, and always every sentence every answer is perfect. Other riders, they contradict themselves, they ramble, you know, they get lost, they forget what they're saying. Rossi and Marquez, no. They both like to fight, you know, and they both like, you know, neither of them are afraid of bumping into another rider. They've both taken other riders out, you know. They're so similar, and that's why, you know, their racing style, their aggression, they're so similar, and that's why they collided head on, you know. It was just going to happen. It was going to happen, and I think it probably started because, you know, so you remember what great friends they used to be. And well, at the track anyway, you know. I think if I look back writing this book as well, probably the moment where it began to kind of change was Laguna 2013, when Marc turned up and did what Rossi did to Stoner at the corkscrew, and, you know, he basically copy and pasted Rossi's move on Stoner up, you know, through the corkscrew, running off the track, and you know, it was just pretty much identical, and I think, I mean, that must have been very painful for Rossi to have that done to you by a kid he was barely out of his teens. He'd only have his 20th birthday a couple of months before. So I think that must have really hurt Rossi. I really do. And I think Rossi at that point must have gone, you know what? I'm not sure if I like this guy. You know, he was always doing the kind of pretend strangling in the Parc Ferme after races. And we all know Valentino. He's so clever. He can be laughing and joking with someone when he's not really laughing and joking with them at all. Like you think of, also in 2013, when Danny Pedrosa beat him at Aragon, he was sort of laughing and joking with him, but I know for a fact that he was not happy, you know, because that had cost him 4 points, you know, which was, I mean, he lost the title by 5 points. So
yeah,
you know, that's the thing with Rossi. He you know, he's such a fun-loving guy and managed to communicate that to us. But you know, when he was laughing and doing like that, that wasn't always what was going on in his mind, and that's fine. You know, that's fine. This is the thing about motorbike racing. It's not just what you do on the racetrack. You know, the mind games and all that stuff is fine. You know, it's all part of the game. You know,
yeah.
Motorbike racing is a very cruel, vicious, gruesome sport. It looks very nice and shiny and colorful from the outside, but inside it isn't. It really isn't. You know, most of these guys hate each other. Even if they pretend they don't, they do. You know? And back in that time, Rossi, Jorge Lorenzo, Danny Pedrosa, Marquez, they all hated each other, you know, eventually. You know, once they get to that point where you're fighting for the title, you've got to hate the guy to an extent, not too much, because if you hate someone too much, then you get distracted. But you've got to bring, because, you know, you're playing with the other guy's life. You're playing with your own life. When you're racing around at 300 kilometers an hour for a world championship, every move you make could go wrong. And you could, you know, something really bad could happen. So people need to understand that this is the way it is, that they all kind of hate each other to a degree. And some of them are better at pretending they're not. You know, this is all part of the thing, pretending you're doing something when you're doing something else. And mind games can be really good. They can also not work, you know. It depends, you know. So they're all playing these games. And to me, that is part of the fascination of the whole thing. You know, they don't just start racing when the lights go out. They're racing all the times in their brains, when they're at home thinking, what can I say to this guy to destabilize him? What can I do? Blah, blah, blah. You know, they're all thinking about this stuff all the time.
It's cruel, but it's the way this discipline has to be. I mean, there's no other way for them to be. So,
absolutely.
Matt, talking about talking about the intelligence, what do you think? And what I don't want to, of course, to spoiler the book. I don't know how much you will dedicate to the in the book to the comeback of Marc after those crazy push-ups in Jerez just a week after the tremendous accident. I mean, do you think, how do you value those push-ups? I mean that because he wanted to come back so deeply.
Yeah,
but was that a lack of intelligence? The intelligence you were talking about. I mean,
yes.
Was that a defeat?
Well,
of Marc,
I don't
somehow.
I don't think it's it was Marc's biggest mistake without a doubt. And he admits that. And yes, you could call it a lack of intelligence, but I think also, yes, it's a lack of intelligence, but more, I would say more than that, it's the rider's addiction to racing and to winning that has actually overcome the intelligence. You know, that's what addiction does, doesn't it? It takes you over.
Yes.
And he was addicted to winning, and all he thought about after he broke his arm in the first race at Jerez in 2020 was coming back and winning again and winning the championship. He didn't think, oh, hang on, whoa, this is a bad injury. Let's wait 2 months. It doesn't matter. You know, I'll lose this championship and I'll come back next year. No, not possible. That's not how someone's brain works. You know, you think of Jorge Lorenzo when he did the same at Assen in 2013, when he came back after pinning his, 48 hours after having his collarbone pinned and plated.
Okay,
and that was a crazy thing to do as well. But a collarbone is less important than the humerus bone, you know, the upper arm bone. So yeah, that was a massive mistake. But like I say, that was addiction overcoming intelligence, and that's what addiction does. You know, it takes over your brain. You know, these guys are all addicts. That's the problem. You know, they're all addicts. You know, they're all addicted to adrenaline. They're addicted to winning.
Matt, did Marc talk to you about the diplopy? I don't know if you say diplopy in English.
Yeah.
Because I think it's the biggest fear he could have. I mean, because that's something that won't pass. I mean, it's the biggest risk he's running.
Yeah, he knows very well that his next high side could be the end of his career. Yeah. And then the diplopia, you know, it might come back permanently, you know. And he accepts that risk. I mean, I certainly wouldn't accept that risk. You know, if I knew that my next high side, and you're going to have a high side, there's no way you're going to avoid that. If you knew that, if I knew, I think if anyone listening thought that their next high side would be the end of their career and perhaps the end of their normal life, they would stop. You know, so he knows every time he lies up that it could be his last race. He doesn't need to have a huge crash and break a leg badly. He can literally have a high side and just tweak that muscle, the same muscle, career over, you know? So that is an incredibly, what I was talking about earlier about that the psychology of putting the danger and the risk and everything aside and just going forward is astonishing. And I find that's one of the things I find fascinating about motorbike racing, the psychology of these guys, you know?
Yes.
You know, so I think what he's done to come back from what he's been through, you know, 2020, 21, 22, 23, 4 seasons destroyed by an injury, and finally back in 24. And, you know, he's still not the same, and he never will be, because that right arm is still not right, you know? So, yeah, I just have a tremendous amount of respect for someone that is so addicted, if you like, so determined to keep on doing what they love, because it is an addiction. You know, these guys, if anyone who's seen the All In documentary, which I would recommend, even though you might hate Marquez, I would, you know, 4 parts, really good. And he's being interviewed in one of that, and he's basically in tears talking about the times when he nearly quit, because you're losing the love of your life, you know? If you're a motorbike racer at that level, your whole life is motorbike racing. If you take that out, who are you? You know, you're just another normal guy walking down the street. You're not a hero motorbike racer. You know, so it's a complete addiction for these guys. They you know, they need to do it. It's not a case of they want to do it. It's like they need to race and they need to win, like we need to breathe oxygen, basically.
Matt, do you think, apart from health matters, is he already planning his exit from MotoGP racing? I mean, does he has in mind another life? Not yet.
Not yet. I think he said to me about the diplopia risk. He said, you know, I'm happy to take that risk, but maybe in 3, 4, 5 years I won't be, you know, and that will be what he'll wake up one day and decide, you know what, I've had enough. I don't want to take this risk anymore. But he said 3, 4, 5 years. So, you know, I think we've probably got 2, 3, 4 years more of him, you know, which is a worry for everybody else, because he is simply on another level, you know, and that comes from various things, but largely from his feeling for the front tire. And this is the secret to motorcycle racing. He has a feeling for the front tire that no one else has. He can go into a corner, lose the front, and stay on quite happily. He can do that 5, 10 times in a race, right? No one else can do that, not even now. I mean, he's been doing that since 2013, 2012, he started doing it in Moto 2, because the Suter that he was riding in 2011, 2012 had a lot of chatter. And the only way he could keep the front from folding was with his elbow. And he brought that into MotoGP. And still other riders save slides with their elbows, but you know, once a weekend, twice a weekend, he'll do it 5 to 10 times in a race, you know. So that's one of the important advantages he's got. And the other thing is, like I said, intelligence. I can give you a couple of quick examples. Kota this year, and I know it all messed up in the end, but while everybody else was on the grid thinking, oh, shall I use rain tires or dry tires, you know, slicks on the grid, he's thinking, okay, how can I take advantage of this situation? I'm going to run back to my pit, get my spare bike, and that way I don't have to do you know, because that's going to be quicker doing a long lap in the race, which is his punishment for taking his spare bike, is going to save him 5, 10 seconds over doing a bike swap. So he's already thinking that, and then Bruno during the race, in the sprint race a couple of weeks ago, when him and Bagnaia got tire penalty warnings on on their dashes, and I know neither was correct, but that doesn't matter. They thought they were good. So Bagnaia slowed down going into a corner and let Acosta come past him. So the way he did that, Acosta was immediately 20 meters in front of him. So he lost 20 meters to the leader, and which lost him position on the track. And he also couldn't warm up his tire so well because he was immediately 20, 30 meters behind Acosta. When Marc did it, he did it on a long corner in an acceleration area, and he was coming around that corner slowly, looking over his shoulder. And as Acosta came close to him, he was already accelerating, right? He was already on the throttle before Acosta had come past him. And then he was instantly 1 meter behind him. So A, he hadn't lost track position, and B, he was heating his front tire straight away. And a third one, which is, I think, the best, is Bruno 2017, when, again, it was a rain race. They all started on rain tires on a damp, patchy track. And the end of the first lap, it was Lorenzo, then Marc, and then Pedrosa, Rossi, Crutchlow, Petrucci, Alicia Spargaro, all these guys. During the second lap, Marc decided, okay, I'm gonna pit for my dry bike for slicks. And during that lap, suddenly he was going nowhere. He was going backwards. Pedrosa overtook him, Rossi overtook him, Crutchlow overtook him, Petrucci overtook him, Espargaro overtook him. All these guys, he went from like second to 10th. And everyone's like going, oh my God, what's happening? He's chosen, And then he went into the pits, into pit lane to get his spare bike. So what he had done, he was like, okay, I'm going to swap to my slick bike, right? But if I do that when I'm in second place, because I'm Marc Marquez and generally everybody follows me, like they did at Cota, all these guys will follow me into the pits. So when I come out with slicks, they'll also come out with slicks, and I won't have any advantage, right? So what he did was let all these guys past, yeah. and Crutchlow saw him as he was coming. Yes, exactly. As he was coming into the left, which is by the pit lane entrance, he saw. As he was coming into the left, he saw Marc going into the pit lane. He went, "You bastard! You fooled us again." So you know what I mean? Imagine that. To think that. He said, okay, if I go into the pits now, all these guys are going to come in with me. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to stay, I'm going to let them all pass me. And once all my main rivals, Rossi, Pedrosa, okay, Lorenzo was in front, but he was going to he was already on rain tires, so he was screwed. To do that, I mean, wow, And it sounds obvious, it sounds logical if you speak about it, but who else do you know that does that kind of thing? It's amazing.
Nobody. It just goes beyond everybody and everything.
Exactly.
So that's.
Sono Cristiano Soro, questo è lo showroom Jeep di Fassina in via Giovanni Battista Grassi. Sono qui per presentarvi tutta la gamma Jeep, dal Wrangler, Grand Cherokee, la nuova Avenger con le sue nuove motorizzazioni, Compass e la Renegade. Vi aspetto numerosi.
Ciao, sono Stefano e benvenuti a Bike House Varese. Questo breve spot per annunciarvi che da oggi siamo appunto concessionari per il marchio MV Agusta su Varese. Ci trovate in Viale Belforte 2, proprio in centro alla città di Varese, per scoprire la gamma MV e tutte quelle che sono le promozioni e le opportunità legate a questo fantastico marchio. A presto!
Babbo, c'è una promo, mi sa. Me l'hanno detto. Z900, eccola. 9,440 più immatricolazione messa in strada, 800 euro di incentivo sul prezzo di listino, oppure per i più smaniosi kit performance, scarico a Karabovic, unghietta monoposto e cupolino sportivo. Vi aspettiamo ad Amodio Moto per la promo Z900 e su tutto il resto della gamma. Ciao ragazzi!
Volvo XC40 B3 Essential a 32.800 euro, un'eccellente opportunità per entrare nel mondo Volvo. Questa e tantissime altre opportunità nuove o chilometri zero qui da Svezia Car Fassina in via GB Grassi 98 a Milano. Vi aspettiamo.
Buongiorno ragazzi da Motor Times. Se state cercando una moto usata, qui ce n'è per tutti i gusti e per tutte le tasche. Fate un salto a trovarmi a Saronno in via Varese al 120. Ciao!
Motoway a Sago, da Luca e Alessandro troverete tanta professionalità e simpatia per le vostre moto Kawasaki e gli scooter Kymco. Motoway è anche rivenditore ufficiale Honda e un'officina veloce, affidabile e precisa. Per la tua moto e per il tuo scooter scegli Motoway.
Vi aspettiamo da Motoway.
Giugno 2025, Motostar festeggia i suoi 50 anni di attività. Dal 1975, concessionaria Honda, Motostar per l'occasione vi offre un incredibile finanziamento, interessi zero sull'intera gamma usato. Avete capito bene? Solamente 150 euro di spese di apertura pratica e zero interessi su tutto l'usato. Non perdetevela!
Ragazzi, finalmente posso darvi una grande notizia. KTM ha iniziato la produzione, quindi a breve, presso K Monza, potrete vedere tutti i modelli che sono stati anticipati in fiera l'anno scorso. Quindi finalmente l'oblio è finito e le moto saranno qui in K Monza. Vi aspettiamo!
Ducati Milano ti aspetta con offerte irripetibili in pronta consegna. La grinta della famiglia Monster, l'adrenalina pura di Ipermotard sono già pronte per scendere in strada con te. Passa da Ducati Milano, vivi l'emozione, cavalca la leggenda. Solo da noi e solo per poco, Ipermotard e Monster ti aspettano.
Exactly. Yeah,
Different.
it's
Matt,
remarkable.
what would you? Why? I don't know if you know about that, but for sure you do. There is a large part of the Italian press that keeps saying that Marc is ruining Ducati, and so we switched to technical matters. And it's something that we heard already when he was in HRC and in Honda, and people kept saying, some people of the media, Italian media, said that he had the complete win the Honda without thinking that he put this bike that was not at the Ducati level in front, fighting with Dovizioso or with the Ducati boys. And so, what's your position about that? Why? Can you explain us why some people keep saying those things?
I see why they say it, but it's just a conspiracy theory. It's literally some people saying, "Oh, well, this happened, so therefore that must be because of that," without actually knowing why that thing has happened. They're just guessing. They're just assuming that this is why it's happened. And I know that's not true because I've spoken to, like I say, Michelin technicians, Öhlins technicians, Honda technicians, Ducati technicians, all the people that have worked with him. And they all say, let's say Frankie Carshady, who was his crew chief at Rossi last year. Carshady said he's never known anybody who's that precise and that detailed in his feedback, because he says Marc's skill isn't just in his riding technique, it's his ability to set the bike up in the way he wants to allow him to use that technique, right? Let's go back to Honda. So if you think of the RC213V and the RC212V that preceded it, the 800 version, basically the same motorcycle. They've been vicious, horrible motorbikes all the time. You know, you think of what the 2112V did to Danny Pedrosa. I mean, the RC212V was from 2007 to 2011. That was the last year of the 800s. It won one championship with Casey Stoner, right?
Yeah.
Because Casey Stoner can ride, you know. Poor Danny, you know, a genius rider, but his height and size was a huge handicap. He would have won the title for sure. But the Honda was a very difficult bike to ride. It always has been. Once they got rid of the five-cylinder RC211V, the RC212V was hard to ride, and the RC213V was hard to ride. Still is. They're never easy machines to ride, right? When Marc came in, the bike wasn't a nice bike, and it still isn't a nice bike. It never has been. You know, so it wasn't him that took Honda down that road. Honda was already well down that road. You know, the only other guy that could win a title on the V4 Honda MotoGP bike was Casey Stoner. So work that one out, right? Work it out. You know, it's not hard to work out. And you think, go to now, I mean, everybody's saying, oh, he's sending Ducati down the wrong road as well. He's not. The GP25 was designed from the GP24. Marc was not riding the GP24 last year. He was riding a GP23. He had no input to this year's motorbike until Sepang. Because, you know, the day they rode after Barcelona, when Bagnaia and Marc rode, you know, prototype 2025 bikes, it was what, a few hours. They didn't start to, you know, the Tuesday after the last race in Barcelona. You know, on a cold day like that, mid-late November, they start 11 and probably go till 3. So they get 3 or 4 hours. That's not enough time to, and it's the end of the season. They don't want to hurt themselves. They don't want to go into the winter injured. So, you know, the testing doesn't really start till Sepang in February. And straight away, Bagnaia and Marquez, on the first day in Sepang, they realized that the GP25 engine is no good. It's too aggressive. They realized that the GP25 chassis, which was built to kind of stop the rear pushing the front, but was too unstable because they'd reduced the strength of the steering head, the headstock. And one of the reasons why Ducati is in this mess, even though they're winning everything, is because of the concessions rules. Not only do the concessions rules help Honda and Yamaha, they also hinder Ducati. Ducati basically can't go testing with their #1 riders, you know, pretty much. They can't really go testing because they're not allowed to. The rules were written to hurt Ducati as much as they were written to help Honda and Yamaha. So they immediately, Marc and Pecco say, okay, no, we want to go back to the GP24, but there's some reason we still don't know why. I still think, you know, some people at Ducati say there's no difference between the bikes. Other people say, no, there is, but I can't tell you what it is. And you know, it could be something really small like this. If the size of the airbox inside the, you know, is different, but you see, it can't be that. It must be, in my mind, something to do with the crankcases, because everything so they can't change the engine because they're already homologated. I could be wrong. That's my guess. But so they're both basically on the same bike. The fact is, and Bagnaia said it time and time again, he does not have that front end feel, and he says that Marc can ride around that. I think it was that you know, if there's a lack of front end feel, that's for other people, but Marc can still get enough feel, you know. But even he's in trouble. You know, you think of him crashing at the start of Jerez, of the Grand Prix, crashing at the start of the Silverstone race, and that's because when the rear tire is new, it's too grippy and it pushes the front. And Marc has realized after that, okay, I need to take care, not go slowly in the first 5 laps, but take care and not to risk. So, but going back to where I was, I hope I'm not confusing everybody. I'm confusing myself.
No, it's very clear. No, it's fantastic.
So people are saying, oh, da, da, da. But the thing is, and Bagnaia admits it, that he cannot feel the front like Marc. And I can't remember, it was Saturday or was it morning walk? I think it was Saturday. I think it was FP3 at Jerez. So you got the back straight at Jerez, down the hill to the hairpin, right? Turn 6, and then you got the turn 7, turn 8 left-handers after it. And Marc is always super genius in left-handers because he's spent all of his life going around in anti-clockwise circuits on dirt track bikes. So he's a genius going left. So Pecco has obviously looked at his data and gone, okay, I can see what he's doing. I can see the throttle he's using, the brake he's using, the lean angle he's using. I can see all these things, and he's decided. And he was speaking to Marc later that day. He said, okay, I'm going to just attack turn 7, the first fast left, like Marc. I'm just going to do it and see what happens. And he had a huge crash, right? and he said to Marc, you've done a deals with someone for left-handers, haven't you? With the devil, basically. So he cannot do what he does, you know? And their bikes are just basically the same, you know, and they've both got a problem, but Marc rides around it, and Di Giannantonio can't ride around it either, which is why, you know, he should be having a better season. But it's simply a case that when it comes to the front end, Marc can do stuff that no one else can. And just, if people don't believe me, I've spoken with Piero Taramasu, who, just a very quick, nice story. Some years ago at Qatar in the night, It was practice, or might have been pre-season testing. They were going out, and Jack Miller came into his garage when he was at Pramac Ducati. It might even have been factory Ducati. He was saying to Taramasu, he said, I was behind Marc, and he was on purpose tucking the front end, going into turn
on purpose,
whatever, on purpose,
on purpose,
just going like this and saving it, right? Literally just turning the handlebars and tucking the front. And Jack was behind him going like, what the? This is insane. And he came back and he was telling this to Taramasu, and then he went to speak to Marc when Marc came in and said, what were you doing? What were you doing? And he said, well, I was just feeling for grip. He was literally on purpose just closing the front, you know, and just saving it on his knee and elbow. Just to judge the grip. It was probably in a left-hander actually, but might not have been. So that's special, right? No one else does that. You know, I spoke to various suspension technicians. Matt Larson's, who's been in Öhlins since Wayne Rainey times, says, you know, there's no one like him in the feedback that he can give. You know, they'll give a new suspension part to most riders and they're like, nah, I can't really feel any difference. They'll give it to Marc and he'll go, it's not really different, but when I'm absolutely on the limit, it just allows me to do this instead of that. So again, you know, these guys know. Larson has been working with people since early 1990s, you know. So, you know, when he says something, you believe him. Frankie Carshady, yeah, he's the best, says Marc's the best ever. Santi Hernandez is just astounded by the feedback he can give. Marco Rigomonti, his current crew chief, says, you know, there's this, he said, when Marc arrived in the factory team, we knew that there was this myth that he's very fast, but he doesn't understand what's happening on the bike. He says it's complete opposite. He understands exactly what's happening with the bike and knows, like I said, how to set the bike up to allow him to do what he wants to do. That's the crucial thing. You know, so if his three crew chiefs, Michelin technicians, Öhlins technicians, if they all say that his understanding of the motorcycle is astonishing and how to set it up, then I believe them. I don't believe the conspiracy theorists, you know. I'm not making this up. You know, if there's something like that going around, a rumor, I will then want to find out whether it's true. And the only people that know that are the engineers who work with these people, you know. So there you go.
Yeah. Matt, before letting you go, briefly, if you were Pecco Bagnaia, what would you do? If the things keep going like they are going now, what would you do next year? Because I see it's too difficult for me to divide, no, the Lenovo box with somebody that is destroying you, and it's so difficult. I don't know what would you do? What do you suggest?
I think Bagnaia is obviously a very intelligent man. He's a great rider. You know, he just doesn't have a couple of the little things that Marc has. If I was Bagnaia, I mean, I can see that he was very angry the first few races, right? Because things weren't going the way he wanted. And but since then, he's kind of calmed down. He's basically accepted the situation. You know, he's not stupid. You know, he's got to accept the situation as it is. That Marc is beating him, and he's just got to go, okay, you know, I'm in a difficult time, but I need to learn from this. I need to learn. Just need to keep chipping away. Don't panic. Don't get angry. Just be sensible and keep chipping away. Don't hurt yourself trying to keep up when you can't. Just keep chipping away. And for next year, you know, there's all these rumors about him going to Yamaha with Pramac or whatever, or whoever else. Maybe he will. I mean, I'm not good on the contract rumor thing. It doesn't really excite me because it's all bullshit until somebody's actually signed. It's all nonsense. You know, I've spent so much of my life speaking to team managers and rider managers and riders, and they say, "Oh, I'm gonna sign with Suzuki," and then the next week they sign with Honda. You know, so it's all nonsense.
But it was not the market scoop I was asking you. I just wanted an advice on what you would do.
I was Bagnaia, so I would stay where I am, because next year they will be able to change. They will be able to go back to, like I said, I don't know what it can be, but for Bagnaia not to be able to go back to what it was, to where he was last year, to me it has to be the engine crankcases, because you can't change the engine, right? It's homologated. If it was anything else, they would just give him you know. So they've gone back. So it's probably a GP 24.9, but it's that last 0.1 that's obviously causing Bagnaia problems. So if I was him, I would stay where I was, because whatever the problem is, they can fix it for next year. And in theory, he should be back to where he was, because we're in a situation now where, without a doubt, the GP24 is a better motorcycle than the GP25, without a doubt. You know, if Marc was on a GP24, God only knows what would be happening. Well, if Marc and Bagnaia was on a GP24, that would be really interesting, you know, because Bagnaia was just totally at one with the GP24, and I thought that Bagnaia would give Marc a bit of trouble this year. But it's actually turned out, because of the GP25, that he can't, you know. So if I was Bagnaia, I mean, Ducati is so dominant. Why would you go anywhere else, you know? And I think he's sensible enough to not take it personally, you know. I think he's sensible enough to go, okay, Marc's better than me at the moment. He can do something that I can't. But do you really want to go and ride the Yamaha? Well, maybe the V4 Yamaha will be fantastic, but it'd be pretty special if the V4 Yamaha comes out of the box and is as fast as the Ducati. So if I was Bagnaia, I would stay where I am, and hope to be in a better position to challenge Marc next year. Yeah, simple.
Okay, Matt. The last thing, I swear, last thing. Do you think the Martin affair is over? Or there's still something that has to be written for this for this guy, and maybe Honda and Aprilia? What do you think?
Well, it seems like he's staying where he is. I mean, the whole thing just kind of blew my mind, really. I just can't see why. I mean, I'm sure he's getting paid pretty well at Aprilia. I'm sure Honda could pay him more. Would you want to go from Aprilia to Honda? I mean, the Aprilia is a much better motorcycle at the moment, you know. And I think if you are signing solely for money, then you're a fucking idiot. Excuse my language, because to me that's not the true spirit.
It's very clear.
That's not the true spirit of racing. You know, you should be racing to win, not racing to fill your bank account. You know, so if I look at someone like Fabio Quartararo, and who's probably the second best rider to Marc. I mean, you think that he had the possibility to go to Aprilia? You know, that they were chasing him for this year, but Yamaha would probably paid him at least twice as much. So he decided to stay at Yamaha. So, you know, and so one shouldn't feel too sorry for. I mean, I love Quartararo. Shouldn't feel too sorry for Quartararo when he's getting his ass kicked at the moment, because, you know, he'll be looking at his bank balance and thinking, okay. And obviously he's hoping that the V4 will get him competitive again. But yeah, I mean, I hope the Martin thing's over, because the whole thing was just a bit ugly to me. You know, to me, obviously you want to earn as much money as you can in this game because you're risking your life and everything. But to me, the prime motivation should be to win championships, and a fat bank balance isn't going to win you a championship. A good motorcycle is, you know.
Yeah, I keep thinking that it's Marquez's fault, because I think everybody knows that it's very difficult to beat him. So if I can beat him with an Aprilia, maybe I can go and get 3 times the money I get from Aprilia to Honda, and keep losing from Marquez. So it could be, you know, joking, of course, Marquez's fault. Anyway. But I thank you so much on behalf of all Paddock TV viewers. Thank you so much for your friendship, and we look forward to reading your book coming out later in this season. Thank you, Matt. Have a good trip
ciao.
to
Bye-bye, everyone.
Austria. Ciao, Marc.
Bye-bye,
Ciao,
everyone.
Matt. Grazie.
Ciao.